Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from Innova.buzz, and I'm really excited today to welcome to the Innova.buzz podcast from Boise, Idaho, in the USA, Matt Stanley, who's the founder of Get Reviews and Leads, who for 30 years has been architecting proven sales and marketing systems to help growth-minded entrepreneurs build thriving businesses. Exciting stuff. Welcome to the Innova.buzz podcast, Matt. I'm really honored to have you here.
Likewise, Jürgen, I'm excited for today's episode. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Now, before we dive in, just a quick note for our listeners, and many of you will know what I'm about to say, but for those of you that are new here, each episode's a candid and practical conversation with a remarkable guest just like Matt, exploring how they create impact, how they build human connection in their work. And I like to unpack their knowledge, their attitudes, their values, dig deeper, and how those translate into action that perhaps we can all take away after this conversation and turn into something of value for our own businesses. We'll start with a big picture, then dig into stories, strategies, and some actionable ideas. And at the end, I wrap up with our signature buzz round, which are 3 rapid fire questions that I ask of every guest. And think of this as if you're sitting at the table here with me and with Matt, and we're all learning together. That's my aim for the conversation today. Of course, all the resources and highlights will be in the show notes, as always, so you can revisit anything that sparks your curiosity later on. Matt, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. It feels like you've built a career on understanding both the systems of marketing and sales and also the whole architecture around success. So things that can be really translated into tangible action points.
Yeah,
Can you share
exactly.
more? Yeah, can you share more about what drives you in this mission and the impact you aim to make in the world?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think my story is in some ways unique and in other ways not. I love technology. I love marketing. I love sales. I love kind of the hunt, so to speak, of knowing who you want to go after and get as far as like your target audience. But unlike hunting where you got to shoot something, kill and eat it, I love the hunt of pursuing the target audience for the purpose of really serving them, right? So when I started, I guess kind of the entrepreneurial journey, I didn't see it for what it was. And I honestly didn't recognize that was what was going on. And so um, the World Wide Web was made available to the general public um, I had 2 to 3 years before I started using it. So I'm dating myself a little bit. I'm 48. I'll be 49 in October. But I started to first use the internet literally within a couple of years of it being available to anyone that didn't work for the federal government. And back then, of course, it was nothing like it is now. But I understood what it was, and I could recognize, even though I was very young at the time, this has the potential to change the world. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And so I had no idea at the time I was going to be self-employed. I didn't see that for myself. I didn't set out to do that. I was just like, I'm a nerd. I'm a geek. This is the coolest technology I've ever seen. You know, kind of like the invention of the airplane, the invention of the internet didn't just transform, the business aspect of things. It transformed culture. And it frankly, it kind of crossed the divide of the oceans and the continents, right, to bring people together in a way that was unprecedented in human history. Used to be you had to, if you want to make an international call, very few people could afford that, right? This was before the invention of the modern cell phone and all that. But I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so back then, if you wanted to learn how to build websites and use the internet, you had to just figure it out. There was no college course, there was no book, there was no learning environment where you could just learn how to do it. You had to just get in there and get your hands dirty and do it. And so I started, we sent emails. I started using um, chat groups and things like that. I started to see websites and basically teach myself, HTML and the mechanics of how to build websites by just trying stuff and saving and then refreshing the browser, see what happened. And I was just having fun, learning this technology, but I didn't see it as, oh, I'm going to make money doing this. It wasn't at all my intent. That being said, I fell in love with the work and I fell in love with the craft of not only building something really neat online and really cool, right, that looks good and that helps businesses kind of market in a unique, innovative way, but I started to realize there's some psychology, there's there's some art and science to this thing of not only making it look good creatively, but being able to communicate a sales message where people are interested in what you have to say and they want to learn more. So I feel like, to answer your question, I'm kind of taking the long route to get there, but I really feel like being an entrepreneur is not something that I set out to do. It's something that found me. And I realized, kind of fast forward quite a bit, skipping a lot of history here. In 2008, um, it was a horrible, horrible time with the recession and all that. And I had what I thought was a pretty awesome job, doing really amazing work, being the webmaster of the largest K through 12 school district in the state of Idaho. But the economy was just really not in a good way. And they said, listen, man, this has nothing to do with your job performance. It has everything to do with the fact that we're trying to stay alive as a organization, and your job is disposable. We don't have to have you to function, so you won't be having your contract renewed. And I already had an LLC. I already had a brand. I already had a business. I was already doing, web design and marketing and SEO on the side, but it wasn't something that I necessarily was all in on. And the decision was made for me. And I realized, I had this moment of clarity. I went, I really love this. And I would love the idea of being able to do this for not just one employer, but anyone that needs help with this, that is really intimidated by the technology. They don't understand it. They know they need to do it, but they don't really have someone to do it for them. And so I made a decision that I was going to really go all in on this business and expand beyond just websites, which is where we started, to get into more really full service agency work. And I just never looked back since then. And so once I got more into it, I realized I don't just love the work. I love the human. To tie into your show here, I love that human connection of knowing that I'm delivering value, but I'm also serving people. I'm a very touchy-feely, empathic sort of guy. I cry easy. I'm very artistic and creative, and proud of the fact that as a man, I have emotions and I'm not afraid to cry in public. But I love serving people. And so when you're able to live your best life doing the work that God put you on this planet to do, you're serving people, you're helping businesses grow, you're helping brands take market share and make more money and serve their customer. It doesn't get any better than that. So that's kind of the backstory of how I got into this. And I pinch myself every day because I feel like I'm just getting paid to play all day. I love the work I do and I love serving people. I'm really blessed because I literally get paid to do the work I love. And every day it's just, I can't wait to get started and get to work. It's a pretty awesome place to be.
Yeah, your passion certainly shines through there. And one of the things that strikes me there, and it sort of parallels my own journey in business in many ways, is that excitement on about the technology, but at the same time, the awareness that it has to serve people
Oh
and
yeah.
that human connection part is so important. And I like what you said there, and it reminded me when I first started in business was just going into 2008 when the recession hit, and I would go out to people and say, well, I can help you build marketing systems and so on so that you can talk to your dream clients and how you connect with them in the right way and so on. And oh, no,
Yeah.
no, we don't need that. We can't afford that. We're cutting back on all that right now. But what we
Yeah.
do need is a website because everybody else is putting together websites and we don't have a website. And it took me a little while before I decided, okay, I'll build somebody a website because I had done website projects, big corporate websites, but of
Hmm.
course I project managed those things. I didn't have the skills to do the coding or to set up the keywords or to set up the SEO and everything. I just
Sure.
talked to the people that were experts in those areas and said, get that done. When can you get it done by? And okay, how does that fit in with what the other people are doing and just
Right.
coordinating that? Then I said, okay, well, I'll teach myself that, and then did full circle in a little bit like what you were describing, did full circle and said, okay, now I'll do the website, but I'll do it my way because the website's a tool. It's a tool to connect with your dream customer. It's a tool to
Yep.
serve your dream customer. It's a tool to help them. It's a tool to help them understand what your business is about and how your business, how your service product is going to help them. And so I
Right.
did that, and it sounds like you kind of went on that same journey.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep. The technology, it's funny. People call and they say, I need this, I need that, I need a website, I need social media things. And it's being into this thing 30 years. It's crazy when I look back that it's been 3 decades that I've been doing this. It's a long time. I realize that people are asking the wrong questions most of the time. They're saying, well, can you help me with this? Can you help with that? And so they're so focused on the deliverable. In the marketing world, we call deliverables, the logo design project or the website build or whatever. And that's fine. Don't get me wrong. We can't do it. We do not have deliverables. But the big problem that I see, Jurgen, is that people they can't see the forest for the trees, is the expression I use, because they're so fixated on the thing, they lose sight of the bigger picture. And so a great website that looks amazing, has great copy, loads really fast on all the different screen sizes, that's great. But at the end of the day, if the website, if the social media campaign, if the email marketing campaign, whatever the campaign or the deliverable is disconnected from the DNA, as I call it, the DNA of the brand, which is where people live, that emotional connection, right? The ROI is not going to be there like it should. And I'm really passionate about this because I have been doing this for so long. I have built, I mean, I've never stopped to count. Even if I wanted to count, I don't think I could, how many individual websites I've built. It's in the dozens, if not over 200 or 300. I don't even know. But so many people they don't start with the end in mind. They start with, I need this done, right? My boss has tasked me with getting this website built, or I need a website, but they don't, because they don't know any better. They don't stop and kind of take a look at it from the 10,000 foot level over. You say, well, that's great, but how does this website connect to your dream customer? How does this website connect to the core mission and vision of your company, right? Because human beings buy products and services, right? But they buy from people they know, like, and trust. And even if you're some big Fortune 500 company with international reach, doing revenue in the billions of dollars a month, there's still that human component. And I think people get into trouble when they don't have there's kind of a disconnect between the marketing activities and the branding work and that human element. And so what I do that I think is pretty unique in the industry is, do we do amazing websites? Yeah, absolutely. We do beautiful websites. We do awesome funnel design. We do all these different things. But if someone calls and wants to hire us to build stuff, and I start asking them, probative questions, do you know who your dream customer is? And I mean, like, do you have a literal document, a PDF you could show me that explicitly gets into all of those things? And they say no. I go, do you know the different buyer personas? What's your unique value proposition? Start asking not marketing questions, but so much as kind of sales, business
Yeah.
development questions. A lot of the time, surprisingly, even with bigger companies, you kind of get that deer in the headlights, facial expression
Yeah.
on Zoom. You're like, what is that? And I'm going, wait a minute, you're doing a million a year or more, and you don't even know what this stuff is. And a lot of times it's because I'm not dealing with the person that's responsible for that, or I am, but they're too busy. And so, but even surprisingly, I mean, we were working, I'm not going to name names. We were working with a client, I believe 2 years ago, and it's a national company with a national footprint, and their headquarters is here in Idaho. But at the time, this was probably 3 years ago, they were doing 100 million a year in gross revenue, and as a franchise business model. Home office, corporate office, it's like 25 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now, and went to have some meetings. And they're this huge company, but the way they're running the business from kind of a sales and marketing perspective is still small business owner with 5 employees. And I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, you need to, there's just a gap in understanding between, yes, there's the marketing, and yes, there's the effort, but you've got to be able to articulate, why should people care? And you should be able to look at every single spend, every single dollar going out on the balance sheet in the expense category as a soldier with a job in the Army, right? And that soldier needs to get a return on their investment. And most people don't think that way, which is shocking to me 30 years into this thing. But so many people are not thinking about ROI. They're just like, well, I spent money and I got stuff, but okay, well, great. But what did that
Yeah.
website make you in return on investment? I
No.
don't know. They don't even know how to measure this stuff, because the company doing the work doesn't care about that. They just want to get paid for the deliverable, right? And I'm like, no, I want to know the ROI, or I've failed. And I make sure that every
Yeah.
project we do, I approach ROI is literally the end in mind place I start. And then we reverse engineer between here and there. How are we going to get them that ROI that we can both be really excited about? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And one of the things you said there, I think I encounter this all the time, is the ideal customer
Oh
persona.
yeah. You
And
got to
and
start
and
there.
I kind of talk to people, I say, well, let's call it the dream customer. Like, let's not
Uh-huh.
say, okay, I've got all these different people that buy from me, and yeah, they're between these ages and they live in these kind of neighborhoods and so on. I say, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you know all that stuff. What about the dream customer? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you could choose, if I said to you, you can only have one of those people, and one
Yeah.
of those people's going to deliver 99% of your revenue, but they will only take, like, 80-20 rule, they'll only take 20% of your attention. Which
Yeah.
one would it be?
I
And
like that.
some of them can articulate that, but again, they come back to, well, it would be the person that lives in the mansion that has so much disposable income. Maybe they're in their 20s to 40s, so
Uh-huh.
that they'll be a customer for another 50 years, perhaps, possibly.
Right.
Those sort of things. I say, okay, that's really good. That's fantastic information. Now let's, and I know you do this, and empathy mapping. So I say, okay,
Yes.
now
That's key.
what, how do they, how do they view the world?
Yeah.
What are some of their aspirations?
Yep.
What are some of their desires? What are some of the things that they might not even tell anyone about, that are their secret desires or aspirations? What
Yeah.
what frustrates them, and going through that, I've done that empathy map exercise with people, and the number of aha moments where, oh gee, that, wow. And that they either realize that there's so many other people I could be reaching out to,
Uh-huh.
or hey, we've got this other service that we never really promote, that would really help these people. Or
Right.
it's along the lines of, gee, I really know how I can connect with these people now, what message I need to be delivering to them. Now I understand why, we've only got a few of those as customers, and we're not kind of clicking with thousands that are out there that I know fit that
Yep. Yeah.
profile.
That's really good. I'm glad you mentioned that. A lot of times what marketers or whatever sales guys, right? They'll call it ideal customer avatar. And it just sounds like science fiction speak, right? Like we do business in the real world with people that don't have the same education that we do. And so something that really technically minded people have a tendency to do is to fully geek out. I call it geek speak, which is like an airplane joke. It just goes right over there. They don't even know what you're talking about. And so changing the language from how we talk amongst ourselves internally with the team, the project managers, the coders, the designers, and say, well, yeah, that's great for us. But when we're dealing with the customer, we need to basically have a kind of a translator in our head that talks normal human, right? So I actually use that same language. As I don't use those. I call it a dream customer profile, because like you said, you can have customers, which is fine, or you can have dream clients. And the analogy that I like to use about this to help people understand why this is so critical. This is the secret sauce that makes the difference between the same campaign doing $1 million or 1,000. Is if you start before you write one single sentence of copy, if you start with the dream customer profile, that's like the starting line. And then from there you expand upon it into the different buyer personas, and then you close the loop with an empathy map. You now have the recipe and the ingredients for a campaign that will perform like crazy, because we're going way beyond demographics, right? A lot of people stop short. They're like, well, like you said, it was actually a good way to kind of explain it. We're talking about median income, household median or average median household income, how many kids, what periodicals do they subscribe to, where do they live? And it's like, oh my word, that doesn't, I mean, that stuff really doesn't move the needle. What moves the needle is what, and you did a great job, Jurgen, kind of explaining this. What hidden fears keep them awake at night? So we're going way past demographics. You got to get under the hood there into the psychographics, right? So it's the pain, it's the frustration, it's the fear of what might happen if I don't solve this problem. What are the consequences long term? Because every decision that has ever been made in the history of the world, as far as a transaction, a purchase, is made with the reptile brain. I'm a geek, so I love to learn. I love to get super deep and just read. I mean, if like, if one article is fine, I'll probably read 10 to fully understand the subject. But the reptile brain, the same part of the brain, which I can't remember the name of it, of the part of your brain off the top of my head, but it's the place where fight or flight happens, right? It's pain and pleasure. It's keep alive, survival of the fittest, right? That's the part of the brain that makes the purchase decision. I don't care if we're talking about groceries or a luxury car or the suit you need to wear to the next business meeting or whatever. It doesn't matter. The reptile brain decides the spending of the money. And then the logical brain, after the transaction's concluded, kicks in
Justifies
and
it.
justifies what you just did.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That's been proven objectively by science for years and years of time. So if we know that, we go, okay, well, not to be manipulative, but to just to understand and work with the brain that God gave us, right? When he made human beings the way he did, is like, give the people what they want. If this thing, especially in the business context, is causing their business to struggle, let's fix that. But we need to speak in their language, not in ours. So if we understand that the sales message starts with dream customer profile, buyer personas, and empathy map, and that's the framework we work from, then the sales message comes out of that. And that's why the conversion rate skyrockets, because we're not trying to convince them to do something. We're saying we're poking the pain. We're rubbing salt in the wound. We're agitating the stuff they may not even be aware of, that's causing them problems. We go, okay, but would you like some help with that? And that's where our solution comes in. So all of that stuff comes into play. And a lot of times, again, you've been building websites for theaters like me. Standard operating procedure in the industry, if it's not a full managed service provider sort of relationship, as the marketing agency of record, is like, oh, you hired us to build a website. All right, cool. So you give us the copy. We'll do the mock-up and the design and put it all together. Wait, hold on, time out. You give us the copy? Again, this is not it may sound crazy to some people, but this is standard. This has been standard for a long time.
Yeah.
Why on earth would you ask the customer to give you the copy? That's insane. But that's typically what happens. The customer is the expert at their field. They're not the marketing expert. That's why they hired you. And so what I like to do is I like to say, listen, I know you hired me for this, and that's great, and we'll be happy to do that. But if you actually want this website to get the ROI that you should, you really need to let us write the copy, because we are really good at it. We want your website to make you money. So even though they might hire us for this, we want to provide a more comprehensive solution to say, you really do need, if we're not going to do it, hire someone else, but why not just have us do all of it? You need someone that understands the psychology of sales to write this copy so that it's aligned with your brand positioning documents like we were talking about earlier. And so that website actually gets customers, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've got to have a
And
holistic approach to this stuff if you really want to get the ROI you should expect.
One of the other things that I think is really important in that whole marketing dream customer scenario is that the dream customers are on a journey.
Oh yeah.
And not every customer is starting from 0 and ending at 10.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's the other thing I think a lot of people miss in the marketing, because I get frustrated when I see things that I've signed up for and where I've ultimately purchased something as a result of signing up and growing confident in their product or their services. And then I continue to get emails that say, buy this product. And I say, well, I did 3 months ago. Why haven't you segmented me out of that list into
Put me over
into
here
another
and
list?
nurture me to buy more stuff, not be out of touch with your own sales data. Yeah,
exactly. And in some ways that's quite a turn off, because I'm tempted to send that email to spam because it's annoying. But then I'm I don't send it to spam because I think, oh, I'm still subscribed to their service, so I
Right.
need to get their emails if they announce some change in the service. For example, recently my credit card is about to expire, so I'm getting all these notices about please update your credit card information so that the
Oh,
payment goes
sure.
through and the service continues. Well, I need to know about that, of course,
Yeah.
and so we do a lot around okay with the customer journey and also the buying strategy. I don't know if you do this in the empathy map exercise. We do the buying strategies.
Hmm.
So you talked about the amygdala, I think it is the
Yeah, I think that is the
reptile
name of the reptile
reptile
brain. Yeah, amygdala. I'm
brain
pretty
makes
sure
the
you're right.
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we kind of kick into logical brain and justify it. And, oh well, it's good value. It's discounted. It does all these things, right? Um, the the buying there's different kind of strategies that people have in the buying that underlies that, and some
Hmm.
is like some people feel it. They feel, oh, I really have to have this. It's sort of it feels right. So let's take something simple like a suit, the business suit. So some
Okay,
people
sure.
go out there and okay, oh, I like the feel of this fabric. Oh, it feels great when I put it on. Others will look at it and say, oh, I really like the look of this. It's if I look really sharp in that, and when I rock up to a business meeting, people will say, "Wow, that's impressive dresser." Others will have other strategies. So we actually dig into that. What's the first thing? Because that the language with which you present your offer has to mirror that, right? Because
Yes, that's right.
if somebody's looking at that suit as an example and they're going by, oh, I like the way it feels, or I like the way it feels when I'm wearing it, and you're saying this thing looks great, and the price is discounted right now. Well, they're not even listening to that. They're
Hmm.
thinking, yeah, but what does it feel like? So if you're not talking in their language, and they're all the kind of things that we layer into that as well. And just
Hmm.
fascinated to hear how you approach those kind of things, particularly
Yeah,
the
that's
customer journey where
yeah.
different people are on different parts of that journey.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think you brought up a couple of things that are pretty nuanced but really important insights, right? So you have basically like the customer journey, which is the process. And I normally can just rattle this stuff off. I'm because I can. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of cheat. I actually wrote an ebook that I get into this in some pretty good detail, but you basically have the different steps. So you've got someone who is marginally aware that there's a problem. You know, they don't really know what solutions there are or how much it's affecting. They're like, it's kind of like this annoying, I got this problem. Well, then you have people like, well, we're very aware of the problem. We know what the problem is, but we don't know what to do about it. We don't know what options there are out there as far as vendors or solutions. And so we're just kind of starting to look into trying to solve this thing. And it just gets more and more acute from there. So people people are we by nature avoid discomfort, right? We will die to protect our comfort zone rather than just build a bridge, get over it, and just do the uncomfortable thing. So until the pain of staying stuck, until the pain of getting out of your comfort zone and doing something you're uncomfortable with is so much greater and more powerful than the pain of staying here, people will stay in profound dysfunction rather than do something scary or new. But in every single buyer journey, there does come a point where I call it kind of the tipping point,
Yeah.
um, where, and in science, I love science fiction. It's my favorite genre for all forms of entertainment. But when you talk about this idea of this black hole, you've got the event horizon, right? So the event horizon is the point of no return where, okay, you're not coming back. You're going through the black hole and whatever's on the other side, like you're done. And in a similar way with business, there comes a point where it's like, I can't stand this anymore. I hate the idea of doing something scary that I don't know, but I hate staying stuck more. So I'm going to do that thing and get that solution. And so you have these different phases, and eventually you're like, well, here's the different options to solve the problem. Then you start trying to decide between, you're looking at online reviews, you're looking at features and all that kind of stuff. Then you're like, we got to do something. Let's go with this guy, right? So you have that. But then the other part of it, which I love that you brought up, is people have different people have different ways of processing information, right? So we have different learning styles. We have different ways to communicate. And very much like the Five Love Languages by I can't think of the author at the moment, but
Yeah,
very
yeah.
famous
Slipped my
book,
mind as
especially
well.
in
Yeah.
Christian circles,
Yeah.
right? Five Love Languages. If you want to have a good marriage and your wife's love language is quality time, but you're constantly buying her gifts, your marriage is not going to be great because you're not speaking her love language.
Yeah.
And just like human relationships that are marriage or friendship or just whatever, we got to speak our customers' love language, right? And I love that analogy that you use, because if we're over here talking about the price and the material and how good it makes them look, and they're like, I don't care, dude. I don't care about any of that stuff. You're losing the sale before you started because you're not listening to, having empathy for, and understanding what are their core values. They're your boss, right? They're your boss. They're in charge. If you want their money, you need to give them what they want and meet them where they are, not based on what you want to tell them. And so many marketers, so many business people make the mistake of going, I've got my pitch, right? I've got my script. If I go off script, I get fired. Years ago, like 25 plus years ago, I worked for a company here locally that was a telemarketing, and it was the worst job I've ever had. I hated every second that I was there, and it was like, this is horrible. But it was good for me because it got me used to hearing no and get more accustomed with rejection and learning to not take it personal. But the bottom line is this: we need to be serving people, and we need to be serving people where they are, the way they want to be served. And if we do that, and if we get over ourselves with the ego and that, well, this is how I've always done it, and we want to be successful, we've got to meet people where they are and give them what they want. And the way that they get what they want is up to them. And we need to be approaching it from their perspective because they're the buyer. They're the customer. They're the most important person in a relationship, period. And a lot of people they're too
Well
rigid.
said.
They're
Yeah.
just not willing to
Yeah.
adapt. And then they wonder why they're never hitting their sales quotas or whatever. It's not complicated, guys. This is basic fundamental stuff, right?
Mm.
We
I
have to
wanted to.
serve them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I
Good.
love talking about this stuff.
Good mantra.
You think
Yeah.
like I do. This is fun. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it. I'm passionate.
I
So,
I wanted to switch gears a little bit and touch on AI.
oh yeah,
And I was tempted to do this earlier, so I'm going to come into this from two ways, and
sure.
I'll probably ask you a double question here, so apologies for that.
That's all right.
The first way I wanted to get into it was you described earlier about the excitement you felt when the internet first came on board, and the possibilities that you saw in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly felt that at the time and thought this is amazing and this is world changing and all of those things. I feel the same sense of excitement, or I felt the same sense of excitement from the beginning of AI when ChatGPT first became available in beta. I think I was one of the beta testers
Uh-huh.
for it. Somehow I got onto a beta list somewhere,
You knew
and
somebody.
yeah, I knew somebody, or I'd subscribed to some early email, and I thought this is just amazing. So, first aspect, how are you seeing that in relation to what you experienced in those early days of the internet? And the second one I wanted to come into it was how are you using it in all of these things like building empathy maps or building dream customer personas or understanding better some of the data that people have and connecting dots and looking deeper beyond that data into how they understand their market. So what are some of the applications there that you see?
Oh, great questions. Yeah, I love it. I love the question, and I love the discussion that it will provoke here. So I think you're right. I can tell, Jurgen, just based on the way your mind works and your perspective, and then just your track record in business. You, like myself, have a kind of a future facing perspective where you kind of can see what this thing has the potential to do. And a lot of people they can't think that way. They can't really see that way. They're just in the moment. But when you see something like the internet, and then you see now, yeah, 30 or so years later, what AI has unlocked it's a very exciting time to be alive. It's a fascinating time to be alive, and it's an exciting time to be in business. And so I agree that, to me, thinking about this kind of professionally as someone that loves to build software just for fun, and then of course for business, AI is to the world as the internet was to the world. It you cannot put it any other way. It's just such a direct parallel because it didn't just it changes everything. And whether you know it or not, AI is everywhere. And those that, I'm just going to be really blunt here, those that for whatever reason refuse to embrace and internalize and maximize the benefit of AI in their business are going to be left behind, right? People that it's funny because still 30 years later, you'll be talking to some people, you're like, well, we don't need a website. We have a Facebook page. And I'm going, oh, goodness me. People like that are dinosaurs that just don't know they're extinct yet, and AI is the same way. It's not that AI is a replacement for people. AI is kind of like the most powerful toolbox on the planet because of what it makes possible and how it saves time. So yes, I think AI is to the globe, in terms of impact, benefit, just human advancement, the way that the internet was back then. The difference for me, though, between the internet and the impact and AI is it's a great resource, but it's just like a tool. A gun by itself isn't bad. A gun is a gun. A hammer is a hammer, right? They're both tools. They're both weapons. And in the right hands, a gun or a hammer can be a wonderful asset. In the wrong hands, it can be very, very, very dangerous and
Yeah.
deadly. And I think a lot of people look at AI. I'm kind of a straight shooter. You know what I mean? I'm direct and I'm honest and I'm frank, but I also just don't mince words. I think a lot of people, frankly, are using AI as a way to be lazy. And that offends me because I love the craftsmanship that goes into to putting together a beautiful sales message and an offer and a campaign and a whole marketing program. And I think that a lot of people, to me, there's some really powerful things about AI. They're very exciting, but then there's also some dangerous things that, if it's misused, could be very bad. And so I'll just rattle those off real quick. Number one, I think that the people that don't understand what AI, when used properly, is best suited for, are going to use it as a crutch to be lazy and not really continue to use those fundamentals of the art and science of sales and marketing that are never going to go away. And so if you think that just because I've got AI, I don't need to understand the psychology of the buyer relationship and what matters to people and the pain that motivates their purchases, I think you miss it. And I think that the campaigns and the work and all that's going to fall flat because you lose that human element. And there is no getting away from the fact that we're always going to have people that we need to serve, right? No AI or LLM or tool on the planet can really think. It can't think. It can't. It's basically mirroring human behavior, but it's kind of like a kid in kindergarten that sees their friend steal the truck and then sees the friend's reaction to stealing the truck and goes, huh, right? And I'm oversimplifying it, but it's a great tool, but it's just that. And if the tool's not used properly, then it's not good. And so I think number one, it's a great tool, but number two is you've got to know how to use the tool. And you got to make sure that you get out of the tool what you want. And something that I've been using AI literally daily, other than if I'm at the weekend, I don't work on Sunday almost ever. Saturday, rarely do I work, but Monday through Friday, right? Every day I'm using AI every day. I have been for a year and a half now. And something that I'm realizing it's interesting is garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't give the AI good, solid, well-architected prompts, what it spits out is junk. And you're frustrated. You're like, oh, this is garbage. I can't use that. Well, yeah, but look at the instruction set. It's doing what you told it
I
to.
think, yeah, I
That's a
think there's
you
a,
problem, not an AI
yeah, yeah.
problem. Yeah,
I
I
think
could
there's
tell
a,
that got your gears turning.
yeah,
What do you want to talk about with that?
yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think there's a real risk. And I'm sort of constantly asking myself this, like you, I'm using it all the time. And I keep asking myself, is this diminishing my ability to think critically or to think through an idea because
Mm. Mm-hmm.
giving away some of the analysis to the LLM or the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm at the moment is, as long as I keep asking that question, I think I'm good. Because what I find, there's two things I find. The first is, if I get a garbage answer, my first reaction now is to go back to, what did I ask? And then,
Mm-hmm.
then I actually write in to the same conversation. I say, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear enough.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I actually meant.
Oh, that's good. I
And
like that.
it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting how that conversation transforms, and it kind of comes back and pats me on the back and says, "Don't worry, we all make
Yeah.
mistakes." Or it's always very friendly. But then I say, "Okay, I've asked the question in a different way. Now I'm getting a different response. It may be what I'm after. It may still not be what I'm after. But then I can go back and continue. Now I'm thinking, okay, I'm actually learning to express myself much more clearly,
Yeah, that's
which
good.
is which is something that is a skill that's really valuable when I talk to people.
Oh
And the
yeah.
second thing is, I'm now having I learned this very early on, and I'm in two minds about this idea of learn prompt engineering, because if you can put in a fantastic prompt, you'll get all this wonderful information. And I figure, well, I can spend a lot of time learning prompt engineering, and then what happens as things change? Then my prompts become obsolete. What happens if I just have a conversation, and I can I can do that and say that's not what I was after.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps I didn't express myself clearly. Here's what I actually meant. So now I'm learning to express what I'm asking better, and
Yeah.
I'm also developing the ability when it then comes back. For example, I say, "Can you write me an email addressing this situation?" And then it comes back. Then I can say, "I would never use those expressions. I,
Mm-hmm.
you know, don't say it like that." And I've learned to do things like where it's come back and it's given me some poetic or flowery metaphors in there, and I've said, "Be less flowery or be less poetic,
Yeah.
because that's not
Yep.
me." And so
Yeah.
then it comes back and it's really matter of fact and bland. And I said, "Well, that's
It's too
not
far
me
the other
either."
direction,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're like, wait a
And I said,
second.
"Okay,
Overcompensating.
okay, okay. Here's what we'll do now."
Yeah.
Your second response was a 0 on the scale of 0 to 10 for poeticism or floral language, right? Your first response was a 10. Okay, I want a
Uh-huh.
7. And that actually works incredibly well.
Oh, I love
And
it.
and
Yeah, that's
not
so
only that,
powerful.
if I'm still not happy with a 7, I can say, now take it to an 8 or a 6.
Yeah, because you have
And
objective measuring
mm,
points for the AI to work with, because AI is basically a program that thinks like a program. It's funny because we're seeing some themes kind of emerge this conversation, right? So uh, AI is amazing, but it also is a kind of a lot like a person, because if you're not happy with what you're getting, you're not communicating in terms it can understand. So if you say that, if that see, so much of what I think in business and in life, Jurgen, that I love to learn. I've fallen in love with learning. But once you learn how to think and you get kind of a skeleton key around a particular topic of a way to reason through things and a way to kind of think through this process, that is applicable in any context. So that learning how to communicate more clearly and more articulately is a valuable skill that's extremely useful in human connections and or conversation. But that same skill set is extremely valuable in using AI and getting the most out of it. So it's kind of this like loop that just keeps feeding back on itself and making you a better and better and better person because you're more surrounded by experience. And I think it's interesting you mentioned that's something about AI that I didn't expect, but that I've been fascinated to watch. Is a side benefit is that it really does, when you're using it properly, it really does help teach you how to be a better communicator so that you can get the most out of it. And I didn't go into this thing with using AI with that being the outcome, but it's a wonderful side benefit. And it just helps you level up and level up and level up so that the more you practice, you go, okay, well, now, say 10 tries later from where you started at 0, the first response you get back is a solid 6 out of 10 because you started in a more productive place. So yeah, I think that's It's really interesting, but it's valuable. It's a great skill set. And I love that you're learning too how to use the technology in a way that does serve you to help you learn. Yes, you want, back to the marketing speak, deliverables, but you also want to have a good experience where you can be more and more and more effective. Because again, it's just a tool, right? AI is just a
That's right.
tool, just like
And
PHP programming is a tool.
uh,
You can write great code that's super efficient and fast, or you can write code that gets the job done, but it stinks because it's so bloated.
mm, yeah, and it there are so many applications. I agree with you that people should start playing with it and should
Oh yeah.
start understanding what it does. Now you can still be skeptical, and I had something yesterday where I got totally incorrect information back, and I'd asked something, and it gave me the factual information that I was looking for, but it was incorrect information. Now, luckily, I recognized that that can't be right. And I challenged it, and then it corrected itself. So you need to certainly be careful. There are risks involved, but there's also some amazing things that can be done. And one of the things I wrote about in a short post I put on Substack yesterday was something that going back to the reptilian brain making purchases. I got an email from the camera company that I own their camera, saying that there's a new model of your model, like there's the version 2 of that
Uh-huh.
model. And
Yeah.
so, of course, the reptilian brain is going, I'm excited. How
Sure.
much,
Oh, I
how
gotta
much
have it.
does
I
it
gotta have it.
cost? How can I get it? But luckily, before I pulled the trigger, I did the analytical bit, and I said, well, I'll go and find out more about this. What's different about the new model than what my model has? And normally I would go to Google, or I'd go to their website and I'd trawl through, okay, here's the list of features of this one, here's the list of features of mine, put them side by side, maybe build an Excel spreadsheet. I've
Oh
learnt in the
yeah.
meantime, no, I can shortcut all that. I'll just go to one of the large language models, ChatGPT or Gemini, and say, hey, here's the old model, here's the new model, tell me what features they have in common, tell me what features are different, is the price difference worth it? And
Yeah,
it'll come
exactly.
down and say, here's the comparison table. Would you like it in a table format? Would you like a report? And at the end, it'll say, well, it's worth it if this, and this is important to you. However, if
Mm-hmm.
they're not important to you and these other things are important to you, then you're as good with the older model. So that's the sort of output you'll get in a matter
Sure.
of 30
Seconds.
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I did that, and one of the features that was listed in the new model was something that sparked my interest, because I'd always been meaning to play with this thing called focus stacking for macro photography. And
Okay.
I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, that's tempting, but
Oh
I wonder
yeah.
if that's enough to buy the new model.
Uh-huh.
And then I
Sure.
asked it, I said, well, how could I do that with the old model? And said, well, your old model actually has that capability, and here's how to activate it. So it walked me
Oh.
through, and this was buried about 5 levels down in the menu system. It walked me through step by step how to activate it, and then it gave me a step by step guide how I actually do it. And then it said, what it asked me, what are you thinking of doing with it? And I said, well, I've got this orchid flower down in down on my terrace. I'll go and take a photo of that. That's perfect. And so I did that, carried out the instructions, got a fantastic photo of a flower, learnt this new skill that I didn't even know the camera had, that would have been pretty tricky for me to figure out myself,
Oh
because
yeah.
I would have had to trawl through about a 700-page manual and find it in there. And then I took the photo, and then I uploaded the photo to that same conversation. And
Oh.
what it blew me away, because it kind of came back and said, well, it's a lovely photo on that. And it said, this is and I can't remember the name now, but it identified the species of orchid. And it gave me the information about that orchid, like where it typically lives, when it flowers, what kind of insects are drawn to it for pollination,
Oh
all kinds of
wow.
information. I thought, Well,
Like a full
I've just
encyclopedic extract on the
yeah, I've
flower.
just experienced a whole learning thing, not just in reading about something, but in actually doing something, experiencing
Yeah.
simply by working with the AI, and
Oh, it's
all
fascinating.
prompted from something that I probably would have read about the camera. I may have made the decision to buy the camera, so it saved me that, or I may not have, and then I would have just put that information somewhere in the recesses of my mind.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? That's one of the things too about AI that for me is the most interesting and fun. That just the wild different rabbit trails that it can take you down at its suggestion. You're like, sure, I never would have thought to ask that, but let's do it. And then you go places you never would have thought of that can create some incredible learning because it anticipates, well, if he was asking about this, I bet he might want to try that. And it's fascinating to watch what can happen if you just enter into this thing. I'm going to start here and see where it takes me. Some of my most fun experiences with using AI have started with, I'm a pioneer, man. Let's just go. Let's see where this takes me. And, an hour and a half later, you're like, wow, I'm so far from where I started, but this has been fascinating. It's really
Yeah.
interesting to just kind of see what'll happen with that.
Yeah, one of the I think one of the applications coming back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of marketing, I think it's really powerful to take information that people have and actually construct dream customer personas based on
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and take a lot of data that many people have, even if it's only intuitive, but they haven't, it's sort of out in various areas. Maybe in one person's brain, there's a bit of intuitive information about customers, in another person, pulling all that together. And if you if you get all that information in one spot and ask the AI, hey, here's my framework for expressing a customer persona. Can you pull all this information together and give me some stuff? And what else? And then I always turn it around. I say, what's missing here?
Oh, yeah. That's a
Because
great question to feed AI. Yeah.
it'll give you the information based on what you've put in there,
Hmm.
and then you can get this nice customer persona. And the first time I did it, I thought, well, wow, that's really impressive. And then I turned around and I said, okay, what's missing here? What am I not seeing, or what else? What else? What other questions would you have of
Right. Sure. Involve it
me
in
if
the
yeah,
collaborative process.
yeah.
Yeah.
and
100%.
and then it highlights some gaps, and then oh wow, and then
Yeah.
of course you've got that persona, and you can give that persona to the AI and say, okay, I've got this solution for that problem.
Hmm.
How should I present that?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like building blocks. I use a lot of metaphors when I'm teaching because I just find that number one, it's an easy way for me to understand the concept. And number two, it's an easy way for other people to remember, right? They say facts tell, but stories sell. So if you can use visual language and lock into people's mind when you're trying to communicate some teaching point, a picture of some kind, they'll have a much easier time remembering it. So AI, when you're using it to kind of create these building blocks or like Lego, it gives you what you need to build the castle one brick at a time, right? Because if you're talking about an old school castle in, Europe somewhere that King Arthur, or he's not even really fictional, but King John II, whatever, lived in. Well, yeah, there's this castle, but it was built one brick at a time. And every good sales message is built that way. But what's fascinating about AI is once you have the building blocks, you just keep leveling up and leveling up and leveling up and leveling up to where now you can start producing bots that will behave like a marketing expert that also is a collaborative consultant to ask you questions and ask you questions. Oh, that's interesting because you answered this question that way. Well, what about this? And it just keeps taking information, but it has a program it's running, which is why it's asking the questions it's asking. And it's building up a library of data with the end in mind of what am I trying to accomplish. And then when it's done, it goes, all right, cool, let's get to work. And then it just spits out stuff based on what you fed it, based on what it knows it needs to ask. And then it goes, all right, here's a first draft of the dream customer profile. What do you think? Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. What about this, back and forth? And then it basically locks that in, goes like, okay, cool. This is step one of like 10. Now let's get into buyer personas. Now let's build an empathy map. And then you have the base data set. Then you can start getting into like, okay, let's talk about putting together your landing page for your homepage or cornerstone content, pillar content, if you will, for this product or feature, or not product, a product or service. And so I started out just kind of with the deliverables kind of mindset of what I wanted out of AI. And then when I started to understand what was an iterative process and inevitable evolution of, okay, well, what if AI could not just spit out stuff, but it could actually build full programs? That's when I was like, all right, I'm in. So I started to teach myself how to build bots. And I've published, I think, a dozen different bots between ChatGPT and Claude. But it's fun because then you can start to produce assets that just save time. And not only they save time, but the output is so much better because what would have taken me 4 hours before, I can do now in 30 minutes. And what it produces is even better in some cases than what I had to do manually back in the day for 4 or 5 hours. It's so comprehensive that it's like it doesn't leave anything out. So yeah, I keep going, oh, okay, kind of light bulb moment, right? Because of using it will trigger an idea and that creativity kicks in. And then I start just dreaming. I'm like, oh, what if I had a bot that could do this and this? And so I just started building them. And so on that point, I want to kind of mention getting ready for this interview. I had an idea since I know we were going to spend some time on AI. And I thought, okay, because I love to make things, I love to build things. I'm a creative person. What if I built a chat GPT that was a custom GPT that would literally produce the elements that we're talking about on this episode with your dream customer profile, your buyer personas, an empathy map, and then also leveraging the story brand framework, which I didn't come up with. Donald Miller basically took something that's been in existence for 2,000 years and copyrighted it and put a name on it. So I can't take credit for that, but he was basically using the story selling method started and popularized by Aristotle or whatever, and said, well, what if we could make kind of a framework that leverages that emotional driving motivation, the pain and the solutions and stuff to solve the problem, but to do it in a way where it doesn't matter what product or service we're trying to sell. This framework is pretty much going to work for most cases. And so what I built leverages the power of AI and building a workflow that's linear where it's not allowed to skip processes because you got to follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but uses a story brand framework for writing copy that sells emotionally, so that what it spits out is downloadable files that anybody can take, and then they give it to their marketing team or their copywriting team or whatever. And now we can start producing incredible campaigns because this thing uses those proven frameworks and methodologies that have earned people millions and millions of dollars by doing things the right way. And so anyway, I went ahead and built it. I actually published it a couple hours before our episode recorded here, and I'd love to share it with your audience if they're interested in checking it out. It's not paid. I'm not charging for this. I just want to give it away because it's fun and it'll save a lot of time.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate that, Matt, and we'll have the link how to get that, of course, in the show notes. So, along
Sweet.
with all the rest of the links. So, this is a fascinating conversation. I mean, we could go down multiple rabbit holes here for ages, but I'm just aware of
Yeah.
the time. So, I think it's a good point now to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round. It's the same 5 questions I ask every guest, and the idea is just a quick fire answer that hopefully inspires the listener to explore something further or even take action as a result. So, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
So, what's the most innovative way you've seen AI used in a way that strengthens human relationships?
Oh, that's a really good question. Just the first thing that comes to mind is this idea of an agent. And so, I'm a pretty technical person, and it is a challenge sometimes to not talk like a robot. But basically, this idea of an agent is an AI bot that has been programmed to think and communicate like a person. And so for me, one of the most fascinating ways that you can use this technology, but in a practical way that helps your business, is to build an agent that has been trained on all of the information that you need to know as far as for your company. So you'll basically create a knowledge base, which is the best way to do that really is FAQs, right? FAQs around your products, your services, the fulfillment, the support side, whatever, and basically train the bot on that knowledge base and then give it a job. And so there's a lot of ways you can implement this. One way is just a traditional chat bot, only it's AI powered. So it interacts just like a human would, or even using that same agentic, which is the technical term for it, basically the agentic way to handle online reviews, right? So if people leave a review with Google or Facebook or whatever, and it's 1 star because they're really unhappy, that's like kryptonite. You don't want to leave a 1-star review sitting there. You want to respond immediately. But how practical is it for any company, however big they are, to be sitting there 24/7 responding to every review? It's not practical. It's not. If you can put an agent on that, though, that will instantly respond and actually have a conversation because they want to make it right. And a 1-star review actually, ironically, is a powerful opportunity to strengthen your online reputation based on how you respond to it. People want 5-star reviews, and that's great. You should. But in my professional opinion, a 1-star review, when you properly handle it and take care of that person straight away, is even more powerful to persuade other people looking at your brand to buy from you when you take care of that customer and you make it right. So hopefully that wasn't too long of an answer, but to me, that's one of the most fascinating and practical ways that this technology can really, really, back to the human connection, not only solve a business problem, but serve people with a level of excellence that isn't practical if it's only human beings doing the work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 So it's it. I mean, we talk a lot about AI saving time and being more productive, but that's a really concrete example of how the more productive then translates directly into a human relationship type thing, which is
100%. Yeah.
transforming that bad experience into a good outcome
Yeah.
for
And
both.
if back to the DNA of the brand, which is an expression I just made up and love to use, but there is no replacing integrity in business, right? There is no, you can't farm out integrity to AI. You can't just delegate that. If you don't genuinely care about your customer and if you're not driven to be the very best and give white glove 5-star service and everything you do is aligned with that as a core value of your company, AI is not going to save you. AI again is just a tool. And so to me, the AI is a representation of that company and it's serving what the company is about, right? Apple, whether you love them or hate them, they have built a brand where people will camp overnight and sleep in 20-degree weather or 10-degree weather for 3 nights in a row to be the first person in their zip code that owns the new version of this. They already have one that's 6 months old, but they're going to do it again. That kind of a brand is built not only with innovation, but with genuinely caring about people and giving them the best products on the market that solve what they want. And so, yeah, innovation and technology, but you can't get away from the fact that you need to know that your customers are the ones that we're really trying to serve. And the AI is just one of the best ways to do that when you properly integrate it with the core values of that brand. It's got to be both. It's not either or, it's
together.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that last properly integrated with the core values. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, what's the best thing in your own experience that you've done to integrate AI in a way that enhances human connection?
Boy, good question. I think really it's probably this tool that I've built because for me, if I can save time and do something that gives people a starting point for a human being to look at and critique, it's helping people free up time to operate in their superpower, right? So I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. I love comic books. I have statues in my office of, the Justice League and all that. But when I can save someone time so they can do what they love, that comes back to what's most fulfilling. I love technology, but I love to create. I love to innovate. I love to dream and then make stuff. And if I can build a tool powered by AI to do the heavy lifting for 85% of the work. And then that last 15% is getting across the finish line where it's like, okay, we're ready to go. Then I free up my time and I free up the time of other people to do what they love to do. I love to produce podcast episodes. I'm working on a show now that I haven't launched yet because I'm in pre-production recording episodes. I love to teach. I love to create content. I love to produce videos. I love to write. I love to write blog posts. I'm writing a book. So the more time I can spend doing what I love to do and the less time I'm in the tedium that isn't so fun, to me, that's a win-win. And so by giving people tools that free up their time so they can do what they love to do, it just kind of adds the fuel to their fire. And if people are doing work that pays the bills but that they hate, I mean, there's nothing worse than that, right? That's like the slow death by 1,000 cuts. You know, people, particularly as men too, we're defined by our work. Our very identity comes from what do you do for a living. And so if you are spending 8 to 10 hours a day working, mostly doing work you love, your problem isn't going to be working hard enough. It's going to be like, I got to stop, right? I got to call it a day because I need some time with
Yeah.
the wife and kids, right? So things like this to me are very valuable because it buys back time so people can live doing what they absolutely love to do. And work should be fun. Work should be exciting and life-giving. And for me, that's one of the nicest benefits of this technology.
Excellent. All right. So, yeah, freeing up time for doing the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And third question of the buzz round: what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves in this day and age of AI? And I guess it's in terms of authentic human connection. And I'm sort of thinking maybe we could ask this another way, or kind of there's an alternative version to this question. It's something I wonder about all the time, and that's what what skills should we be cultivating more of as we hand off stuff to AI, and as AI starts to take some of those mundane jobs you referenced before?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something that I think is really important is to, again, you want to embrace technology. You want to use all the tools available to us to be more efficient, but you have to have some balance with this. And um, something that a coach that I just love and respect and really admire that's just being very, very successful is he says, what does your onboarding process look like? Right now, it doesn't matter if you're a marketing agency like me that does all this really cool stuff, or if you dig ditches, or if you put roofs on houses. It doesn't matter what product or service or niche you're in, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. If you can do things that are so unusual that people can't help but remember, you're going to stand out. And in this day and age of email and text messaging and direct messaging or DMs and all this stuff, when you get a physical piece of mail in the mailbox that is actually, you can tell, hand signed, not it's a signature that's been saved as a file that was like, no. It's literally a handwritten note, like we're back, in the dark ages before the internet. That really stands out because no one does it. So finding and thinking, and it's practical, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but just these practical ways. When someone physically took a piece of paper out and they picked up a pen and they took their time, to handwrite a note because they were thinking of you, holy smokes, that one thing will go so far, right? This isn't always practical for everybody, but it is practical for most people, is when you are delivering that onboarding experience. Think about, if I were my customer, what would I want? What would make me feel like $1,000,000, like a VIP? It doesn't matter if the amount of business we're doing with these people is tens of thousands of dollars a year or it's a few hundred. The price that you're spending shouldn't be what the determining factor is. If you can create a new customer onboarding experience that is so legendary that people go on social media and post about it, again, practical, actionable, easy, not complicated. Wow. You talk about that human connection. Those are things that are simple to do. They don't have to cost a lot of money, but they will create an experience, right? We want to create experiences our customers couldn't forget if they wanted to. There's companies that specialize in gift baskets. There's a lot of companies that do this, but you customize, again, back to knowing your customer. You don't want to send someone, chocolate covered peanuts that's deathly allergic to peanuts. Wow, that's not going to go well, right? So being enough in touch with each individual customer that you know some of these things, but having that experience where people expect based on the industry, well, this is what I expect. This is what I've always had. And then they get a handwritten note 3 days after they sign the contract. Then a week later, something they have to sign for because it's a physical package that's a gift basket with their favorite stuff in it. They're like, who are these people, right? So the more deep we get into technology, the more we kind of need to think about and not lose touch with that old school way of doing business where we see the whites of their eyeballs and we shake their hands. It's not practical for your customers are 5 states away, but there's ways to get around that where we create a brand that's so compelling, that's like the cult members, right? That are the Apple people. They're loyal to a fault and would never think of going somewhere else because they feel so seen and heard and appreciated on that deep emotional level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that onboarding experience is something that, we talked earlier about customer journey. It's something that people kind of forget. They think the journey's over once, okay, I've made the sale, it's good.
Exactly.
And if there's a service involved, okay, let's get to work on the service. Or if it's a product, okay, ship the product and then we're done. But that onboarding can be so powerful. Yeah.
And I think that that's important too. Something that I'm going to go ahead and just mention it real quick. Something that frustrated me 15, 20 years into being in this industry that I saw it over and over again is people were so fixated on acquisition, right? Getting customers that they lost sight of their most valuable asset. The most valuable asset we all have as human beings is time. The most precious asset we have as business owners and entrepreneurs is our customer. And if we're so fixated on new that we lose sight of the literal gold mine that is our existing customers, we're never going to reach our full potential. And so what I realized was I've got to create a system that is a comprehensive, holistic, closed loop system from beginning of customer journey past closing the sale that just constantly keeps it going. And that is where my RAC system came from. So I created something called the marketing framework. It's called the RAC framework, and R stands for reach. That's your basically your visibility, your brand visibility, your market penetration of people know you exist. That's great, but they're not a customer yet. So A is attract. Okay, well, they know we exist, but we're not attracting prospects. That's a problem. So it kind of is linear, right? So we reach, we attract. Well, then what? When we convert, that's closing the sale. Critical. All right, but 99% of every business that's ever existed, that's probably not accurate, but the vast majority of people think they're done with C. They're not.
Yeah.
That's actually the starting point. Closing the sale is starting the relationship. You need to woo that person until the day that they're in the ground because they've expired, right? Keep. That's critical. It is 7 to 10, depending on the research, I've seen numbers high as 12, but between 7 and 12 times more expensive to get a new customer than it is to keep one you have. So if you think about this practically, if you get your customer retention rate from where the industry average normally is down to, up to like 93, 95%, pretty soon you almost don't need new customers because you're so good with what you've got. So you have to focus on that K. And just like being married and staying married, next year, I'll celebrate 20 years with my bride. I'm so excited at that milestone. But business is just like being married. You need to be committed to that person for life. And it's about them. It's not about you. The best marriages are where each person's trying to outserve the other one and they're not keeping score, right? In business, we need to have that same hard attitude if we want to be successful because it's about them. And the relationship doesn't end because they signed the contract and gave you a credit card.
Yeah, well said. I'd certainly endorse that, and congratulations on 20 years of marriage coming up.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. I think a lot of people forget that once you cross that, or once the client crosses that threshold of okay, they're now paying me money, or they've now purchased a product from me, that you have even more responsibility, whereas a lot
I
of people
agree.
think that, okay, I'm done now, I'll move on to the next one. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot, Matt. This has been a fabulous conversation. I've really had a lot of fun. We've covered a lot of
Me
ground
too. Thank you
today.
so
And yeah,
much. Yeah, we've
now
gone all kinds of fun places with it.
where can people find out more about you, about the work you do, and maybe even reach out and say thanks for what you've shared today?
Absolutely. Well, the best place is just going to be our website, our homepage, which is getreviewsandleads, all spelled out.com. Get, G-E-T, reviews, R-E-V-I-E-W-S-A-N-D, leads, L-E-A-D-S.com. And if you want to put a /MCA at the end of that, you're going to get that free awesome goodie that I was talking about. So getreviewsandleads.com is just going to be the main homepage for the brand. And then /MCA. The MCA is an acronym for this custom GPT that I built, which is a marketing. Sorry, I have it open, but I'm in the wrong browser. There we go. Marketing Copy Architect. This thing literally is going to ask you a bunch of questions, and then it's going to get to work, and it's going to give you all of the building blocks we talked about for your marketing, including your homepage. It can even do email sequences and all that kind of stuff, because I want to equip people with tools to just shortcut and save time and get back to the work they love. So that's the answer to your question. We have visibility, of course, on the social media sites as well. So
Excellent. And of course, we'll have those links in the show notes, as I mentioned earlier. And thanks for that generous gift as well, Matt.
my pleasure.
So as we wrap up, what's other than going and checking out that marketing content, was it content architect?
Marketing Copy Architect.
Copy architect, okay. What's another specific action our listeners can take today based on our conversation today?
Great question. Use the tool because it'll help build with those fundamental building blocks. But then the other thing too is think about ways that you can keep that tether to the heart of your customer. I know this is something you preach all the time, and I love that you talk about this because it's so easy to get so fixated on the tech that you lose touch with the practical world real humans live in, right? But I'm passionate about serving people, and something that I'm really driven to do is, as much as I love serving our clients, and that is what we do all day, if I am absolutely obsessed with my dream customer's dream customer, everybody wins. So even though this is what I do for a living, I think it's directly applicable to every listener. Is I want you guys, I'm going to speak to your audience directly here. I want you guys to think the way that I do, which is if you can be obsessed with your dream customer's dream customer, everybody wins. They win, you win, because we want the fruit on the vine of the garden that we're planting, right? So if we go a level beyond where most people do, and we think about our dream customer, we're thinking at the starting point, and we are going to be every action, every word, every attitude, every facial expression, the body language, the posture, how we present ourselves to the world is going to be in a situation where we're cultivating a garden with amazing fruit where everybody wins. And we got to think more like teamwork rather than competition. There's plenty of room for everybody to play. And if we stay in our lane with what we know God's called us to do and what we love to do, everybody is going to be fine. So that was kind of a little bit of woo-woo, but that's who I am. So
Yeah.
Inspiration struck, and I felt like I needed to speak from my heart on that.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I love your passion, but I also love that you talked about who's the dream customer of your dream customer, because that's one of the questions we ask, and people think, why do I need to know that? I said, well, if you care about your dream customer, what do they care most about? What should they most care about if you're following this philosophy? Well, their dream customer. Exactly.
Yes,
So,
you got to go a
yeah,
layer
so,
deeper than that. It's kind of like
yeah.
peeling the onion. Yeah, that's good. I love
Excellent.
that.
Well, thanks so much for this absolutely enlightening conversation, and I
You're so
hope the
welcome. My
passion
pleasure.
shines through, Matt, and everybody gets as excited as I've been throughout the conversation. All the best for the future, and please do stay in touch.
Will do, of course. Thanks so much, Jürgen. Have a great rest of your day.